106 of the Standing Committee on Finance. We're meeting at the request of 4 members of the committee pursuant to Standing Order 106.4. Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings are being televised and will be made available via the House of Commons website. This meeting has been discussed. The meeting was requested by 4 members of the committee to discuss the testimony, logistics of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, and to address the production of communications. So I'm not sure which of the 4 is proceeding to make the argument. Mr. Poilievre, I see him waving. Mr. Poilievre, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Before I begin, I'd just like to briefly note that we could have settled this at the last meeting, but you shut the meeting down in violation of the rules. There was no vote to adjourn a meeting. The chair needs to have a vote of the majority of the members of the committee, and you had no such majority. So those rules are clearly laid out in the standing order. And they read that the committee chair cannot adjourn the meeting without the consent of the majority of the members. That's in Procedure and Practice, 2nd edition. So I do still have the floor to my
yes,
to my
you
knowledge.
do. But just to make a point, Mr. Poilievre, it's my understanding that when you reach the adjournment time, you need unanimous consent of the membership to continue. We'll ask the clerk to give us some advice on that at some point. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. The reason for today's meeting is to prepare the ground rules for tomorrow's hearings. The motion that I want to put forward is, quote, that the Prime Minister appear for no less than 3 hours alone, and that Katie Telford, his Chief of Staff, appear for no less than 2 hours alone, and that the 2 appear separately.
Are you complete?
I've moved my motion. I just want to make sure that you have registered the motion, then I'd like to be on the speaking list to address my motion.
All right, you're on the speaking list. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are obviously a lot of questions surrounding this controversy. The Prime Minister's family has received over $500,000 from the We Group, almost all of it since he became Prime Minister. He has admitted that he should have recused himself, an admission that will almost certainly accompany a conviction by the Ethics Commissioner. The same group received a contribution agreement worth $543 billion, of which 43 million was to go to the organization's expenses. The obvious conflicts related to this matter have led the entire thing to be canceled. This is a case where $500,000 went from We to the Prime Minister's family, and then $500 million was going to go from the Prime Minister's government back to We. There are a myriad of meetings, conversations, of hearings, of discussions that and exchanges that led to the creation of this bizarre program. We need to know who met with what deliberations occurred that led to the decision. The organization in question is now coming under scrutiny for extremely unusual developments in its Kenya office. Prime Minister needs to indicate what he knows about those developments. We also have learned that the organization has a myriad of has linked to it through its principals, a myriad of numbered companies, private for-profit enterprises, foundations, real estate holding entities, all of which are involved in a series of strange relationships with the principal entity. We've also we've learned that the contract or the contribution agreement was directed not to the principal charity, but to a real estate holding foundation, a shell entity that was created for the purpose of nothing more than holding real estate. These are extremely complicated issues, Chair, and we can't simply slough them aside with 10 minutes of questioning from each party. Most parties actually, under the current plan that you've created without consultation, would get less than 10 minutes to ask questions, and that does not include the time that the Prime Minister has to answer them. Furthermore, yesterday you displayed that you are going to interfere with the ability of members to keep the witness focused on the questions asked, and that you're going to allow witnesses to basically give rambling speeches unrelated to the questions asked, which will further burn down the clock and prevent the Prime Minister from providing any answers. I conclude by saying this. If the Prime Minister doesn't come and answer the questions, then he's going to be called again. This time it'd probably be through a vote of the House of Commons, and it would probably mean he ends up before another committee with an objective chair who would preside over the meeting without jumping into the rescue of the witness. So he's better. It's in the Prime Minister's interest just to come and give a fulsome and complete testimony now, rather than trying to come in, put on a dramatic performance, hide behind a favorable chair, and then sneak out the back door before anyone gets answers. Do it once, do it right, because if you don't, you'll be back doing it again. Thank you.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. I would just point out I'll not get into an argument over my chairing, other than to say the rules of questioning were laid out at the initial meeting of the Standing Committee on Finance. There's 6 minutes for the first 4 in the first round, 5 minutes for the next 4 in the next round, 2.5 for the next round for the Bloc and the NDP. Just if you want to go back and look at the rules. And if you look at the record, you'll find you usually get more than 6 minutes. In fact, I'm very kind to you. I have Mr. Julian next, but I see a number of hands that are up. I'll go to Mr. Julian, and then Mr. Sabera, and Mr. Zerowitz, and Mr. Fortin. Did you have your hand up, or Mr. Fortin, did you have your hand up? Okay. All right. And Miss May. Okay, Mr. Julian, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to be brief because I know we want to get to a vote for this meeting. First off, yesterday, the 4 hours only really hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of questions being asked. And I could tell you I had literally another dozen questions that I wasn't able to bring forward. It makes sense then to have the Prime Minister available for a number of hours so that these questions can get answers. And I was dismayed by the evasiveness of our witnesses yesterday. I think a number of times they could have just answered honestly, and they chose not to. It's unfortunate because I think in that respect, they're doing a disservice when we're trying to get to the bottom of this controversy and this scandal. So I support the idea of 3 hours for the Prime Minister, 2 hours for Ms. Telford. That makes sense. It won't by any means exhaust the questions that myself and my colleague Mr. Angus have, but we'll get a start of getting the most important questions out, I believe, with that. I'd also like to reference 2 other things, Mr. Chair. First off, I normally find you very fair, and I've certainly worked with you for a number of years. Yesterday, I found that you intervened quite often to reinforce points that were not valid. Just one example, in my case, the issue of the Shell Foundation is it's a fact. It's not in dispute. And the evasive response from the witnesses is not something that the chair should be repeating. I shouldn't be into an argument with you, Mr. Chair. The facts are quite clear, and the witnesses were quite frankly wrong. And I would appreciate you not repeating wrong answers, answers that are not factually correct. I think your role is very important. You just have to govern us. And the key aspect of making sure there is a rough time allocation is important. As we've seen in the House with the COVID-19 committee, it is absolutely essential. My final point is this. You're right on the rotation at the first, second, and third round, but we then go back to the first round. And what that meant was that in a first round, about 2.5 hours in, each of the opposition parties and the government party had the right to a 6-minute round, and that was simply neglected. If we're going with 3-hour format tomorrow, when we get back to the first round, it is again 6 minutes for the Conservatives, for the Liberals, for the Bloc, and for the NDP. And I hope we stick to that. I didn't want to interrupt the proceedings with a point of order and the dispute because we were already not getting all of the questions answered that we needed answers to. But that is the rotation when we're going beyond the 2-hour framework, and I hope that we will stick to that tomorrow. And that's it for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. No problem with a point of order. We can always ask the clerk in those matters. I'll go to Mr. Fortin and then Mr. Sapero.
Sorry. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I agree with the proposal, the motion from Mr. Poilievre. Yesterday, I was quite frustrated given the problems that occurred. We had 4 hours. So tomorrow, if we've only got an hour and I've only got 5 minutes, and if there's some kind of other technical problem, well, that would be problematic. So 3 hours would be a minimum. The situation is problematic, unique, to the best of my knowledge. We've never seen a situation where the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance are subject to investigations like this. And the situation with We Charity is something as well. I'm not here to challenge it and criticize it, but the Prime Minister apologized, as did Mr. Morneau. And I think this is a principle of democracy that's at stake here. I think that we need to have the hours, 3 hours with Mr. Trudeau, 2 with Ms. Telford. Now, having said that, I understand that the rules were adopted with respect to the time, and the Bloc Québécois time is similar to that of the NDP. There are 32 of us and fewer of them. I would have appreciated having in the second round a similar amount of time to the Conservatives. I think that would have been it would have been better for asking the questions, because it's hard to be calm and serene because we have to go quickly because of the short amount of time. Mr. Poilievre went very quickly with the witnesses, and even though we're not from the same party, I understood why he did that, because we have so many questions and have to fit them in. And if we've only got a couple of minutes or 30 seconds, and my precious minutes were being burnt up yesterday, so I agree with Mr. Poilievre's motion, but if there is a way for the Bloc Québécois to see the Bloc Québécois given time similar on the second round to that of the Conservatives, that would be desirable. And I think that we need a procedure to adopt a procedure if a witness, for example, goes on too long. If a question is 20 seconds, well, the witness needs to respond in the same amount of time, like we do with the COVID committee. There needs to be a mechanism put in place so the member that will enable the member to recover that time and not lose most of the 3 or 4 minutes. So those are the points that I wanted to draw to your attention.
Okay, then I will go to Mr. Sabera is on next. Sorry, Francesco.
No, please.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your chairmanship of the Finance Committee. I've been a parliamentarian now. This is my second term, and I was honored to sit on the Finance Committee for the entire first session of Parliament when I was elected, the first session, with you as the chair, and it was a learning experience, and I can state with full conviction that you treated all members of all parties with dignity, with respect, and I learned a lot from you, and I continue to do so. So thank you.
Let's try and get to the motion at hand.
We will. So I wanted to put that out there because I don't want to leave any misconceptions from other members of the 338 of us that have the privilege of sitting in the House of Commons that anything is likable. Anything is nonetheless. Thank you, Mr. Polyev, for your hard work, your entrepreneurship, and so forth, and your motion today. With regards to the testimony this week of the Prime Minister of Canada and the Principal Secretary, Chief of Staff, in terms of the time, and in your comments that you started off, you stated a number of things that I think we need to chat about, and we need to make sure that are clarified, and need to make sure where we're at this evening. Here, all of us gathered together. Here, myself and the beautiful riding of Vaughan Woodbridge, and all of us spread out coast to coast to coast in this beautiful country we live in. First off, we heard yesterday 4 hours of testimony, 4 hours of testimony from the Kielburger brothers, and I was paying attention very closely, and I think probably for the last hour and a half, there was much repetitivity in the questioning of many of our members. Many of the members, especially on the opposition side, I didn't see and learn much new in the last hour and a half. There are many intriguing questions. There are many questions that I thought brought many things to light. I think we need to touch upon those issues in this time we have allotted this evening, because it's very important that we don't do that again. We had 4 hours of testimony where opposition members, where government members asked questions, tough questions, I would say, and received a lot of information. We know, for example, that Mr. Poilievre's just stated that $500 million was going to be transferred from the government to we. No, $500 million was going to go to hardworking student volunteers across our country. Up to 100,000 kids would have received monies for volunteering, for doing great deeds across this country. The We organization, as was indicated yesterday quite clearly in the contribution agreement that I have here with me and that I've read closely, was only going to be reimbursed for eligible expenditures that they would have incurred. So we need to understand that, because first we had an indication it was $900, $1 billion, and you had a lot of words come out from opposition members, which were factually inaccurate. And then you had a lot of words indicated tonight, and some in statements from Mr. Poilievre when he spoke about his motion, about, well, $500 million, and there was this shell company and that shell company. And I'm just scratching my head, because that to me are very, I would call it inflammatory comments, but statements that are incorrect. The We organization had signed a contribution agreement. They have connections with 18,000 schools across North America, an organization that was looked upon by our public servants who have done a phenomenal job in the last 4 months. And we need to step back and think about where we are at a point in time of Canada's history, the history of the world in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. This was one measure amongst many, call it the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, CEWS, so forth. This was one measure amongst many to help students. And that's what we were doing. We were helping students, and we continue to help students, Chair. We continue to help students through the benefit, the Canada grant that's going to students in terms of them graduating, part of the $9 billion package. And this was one portion of it. Now, there was one comment during the testimony in terms of what we described as lapse funding. And I make this analogy in lapse funding as, and when in the private sector, I used to go to what were called investor days, where a company would come in and, I covered the sectors. I covered the midstream sectors, if I can speak to Mr. Cooper's world in Alberta, downstream, oil stream. I covered all the energy companies, pipelines, and they would present an investor day, and they would give us a set of numbers and what they would forecast, much like a budget. And then they would come back and you produce quarterly filings that I would follow and look at from a bond perspective as a bond analyst, as someone who worked in the financial markets, and really very much enjoyed myself and learned it and brought the skill set here to where I am now. And it's similar to this contribution agreement where we've allotted $500 million that would then go to students across Canada, youth across Canada, for volunteering, up to 100,000 students. And it was in the Kilburger's testimony yesterday where they indicated that, this was the allotment, and how much was going to be spent may have been up to that amount or may have been less. And I only go to, the opposition has consistently mischaracterized this contribution agreement as being bigger than it really was. It was for a maximum of $543 million. The difference was just allocated and not committed, which is, of course, common practice within government. I would expect a seasoned member of parliament that's, my understanding, has sat in cabinet, member of parliament that I actually would like to quote, because I think it applies to the issue at hand in terms of the contribution agreement. And I quote from my learned friend, because I consider myself friends with all members of all parties and have relationships with all members of all parties, and we chat and we're there to represent our constituents and do the good work that Canadians expect us to do. And that's why they sent there, and that's why they give us that privilege. Now, I would expect, and I'd like to quote, "Thank you for your question. I think we need to put the issue of lapse funding into its proper context. It is the regular practice of governments to spend underneath the budget that Parliament authorizes for them. And there's a good 800-year-old reason for that, which is the departments are not meant to spend what Parliament has not approved. And it's unwise to spend right up to the limit for fear of going over it. It is good, prudent financial management to come in under budget and to leave a buffer between that what you have approved and that which we spend." That was my learned friend, who I respect greatly, Mr. Polyev. Now, on the point, so I think we really need to clarify the details in the contribution agreement in terms of where we are. $912 million, that was the total value of the Canada Student Service Grant when the program was announced by the Prime Minister, Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, on April 27th. A comprehensive table, they lays that out in all federal emergency spending estimates that's still assigned that number to CCSG program on July 28th. If we look in the details, $543 million was the federal funding allocated to the CCG Accord contribution agreement signed by We Charity and my good friend, Honorable Minister Barta Shagar. That was the amount that we are dealing with. No more, no less. And the expenses was done on a graduated scale. So the program would have been adopted, would be run, and as you increase the number of youth signed up, participating in the programming, benefiting from the experience, and let's not forget the organizations that would have been benefiting. And we know to date that a majority of the, I think, 30,000 plus students that had indicated that they were interested in taking on this program and working in their communities came from Indigenous, racialized communities across Canada. And Mr. Chair, I grew up in northern British Columbia. I grew up in Prince Rupert, BC, and I have always been a very, very big advocate, proponent on nation building and relationships with our Indigenous communities. And that is something was great to hear that an overwhelming majority of youth that had signed up for the Canada Student Service Grant were from that nation, that community. And so to see this CSSG be derailed, this program be derailed due to political purposes, a program that I thought of with much value, was honestly very, very disappointing. So if we look at the details, up to the 500 million was the total federal maximum funding allotted for students who would be eligible to receive up to $5,000, paid in increments of $1,000 for every 100 hours volunteered. 43.53 million would be the maximum funding for eligible expenses or expenditures, if I can use that detail, for we, the organization, selected, signed with a contribution agreement by our wonderful public servants and recommended by our wonderful public servants to fulfill this task. Now, do I believe that they could have fulfilled this task? Yes, absolutely. Do I believe that there's value in the program? Yes, absolutely. So when you think of the expenses, it was broken down in the contribution agreement. The details are there. 19 point.
Point of order.
Yes, MP Julian.
Sorry, Peter, I'm muted. Point of order, Peter. Mr. Julian.
Yes, Mr. Sobera obviously doesn't want the committee to vote on this, but he is not speaking to the motion at all. And as a result of that, I question the relevance. But I also have to say, Mr. Chair, I mean, it's a very simple matter. If Mr. Sobera doesn't believe that the Prime Minister could answer questions for 3 hours, he should put that forward. He should speak to the motion.
We'll go to relevance, Mr. Sobera. If you could stay close to the topic at hand, go ahead.
With pleasure, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your intervention, MP Julian. I find your comments always to be insightful and judicious. So thank you for that. My concern about 3 hours is, along the lines as we heard testimony yesterday, and we heard questioning yesterday. We had heard every questioning, even about, we touched upon the issue of mental health and how an individual's mother was dragged through the mud yesterday. And to be blunt, that was, to me, quite sickening. To be blunt, I was disappointed in that. So for the opposition, Mr. Poilievre, to state that, I want to bring the Prime Minister for 3 hours instead of the allotted hour, I was wondering, where are we going with that? And I've been thinking about this and thinking about the testimony that we heard yesterday, and some of the questions that were asked. Frankly, as I said, the last 2 hours of those 4 hours of testimony, I didn't hear any original questions from the opposition members, and I was disappointed. Even with regards to the structure of the We Charity, which is under review, and they're doing their own self-analysis, and we know that they were provided advice by, if it's in-house lawyers or other representatives, in order to structure themselves to run this program for liability purposes. And we know that that is a very common practice for organizations. But yet, some of us ignored or wanted to close our ears in understanding that. Now, I'm going to let we and the Kilburgers speak for themselves, and they have for 4 hours, and they can continue to do so. But at the same time, I want to make sure that if we're going to bring any witness for 4 hours or 3 hours or an hour, that the time is spent wisely, that diligent questions are asked, not the ones I want, because I may not agree with my opposition members or my government members in terms of the questions I want to hear. I may want to ask other questions. But for me, it's important to know that they're relevant. And, we speak to the motion of relevance, Chair, that when the Prime Minister arrives on Thursday and answers questions on this relationship, because this is only one program out of a plethora of programs that we've brought forward as a government that is benefiting Canadians.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I will stop there. I'll yield the floor to, and I believe it's my honorable colleague, MP Zurowitz. I think she's next on the list.
I do have Ms. Zurowitz on the list next, but I would really prefer if we could kind of rotate between parties. Is it okay for me to allow Ms. May in, Ms. May, and then Ms. Zurowitz? And is there anybody, do I see any other hands? Okay, Mr. Fragascatis. Okay, Ms. May.
I'm going to limit my comment only to the matter of the procedure taken by a chair of a committee in a minority parliament. As a non-member of this committee, I'm extremely grateful to the latitude of you, Mr. Chair, but I recognize that all my other colleagues, including Mr. Poilievre, whom I'm going to agree with and then upgrade in just a moment, are incredibly kind, and I appreciate it. But I want to say that it's very important, and I certainly can't lecture you, Mr. Chair. I think you've been trying throughout this to be extremely balanced. I do think I agree with Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Julian that you were having some difficulty yesterday in keeping partisanship out of it, and that's rare for you. But I do want to remind Mr. Poilievre, way back in 2007, when he was parliamentary secretary to the president of the Treasury Board, his party put forward a handbook for committee chairs to deal with the difficult circumstances of a minority party in government trying to control committee proceedings. It was a handbook that led Leon Benoit, as chair of the International Trade Committee, to adjourn a proceeding. Peter Julian may remember this, storming out of the room, throwing his pen down and saying adjourned, leaving the majority of the members who had just voted to proceed in something of a quandary. The handbook was full of tricks like that. So I would ask my Conservative colleagues to bear in mind their own history. I would ask all of us to try to be as nonpartisan as possible, because the country is still in a pandemic. I will say that I don't believe the evidence we were getting. I said I was going to limit myself. I don't believe that we got great, helpful, forthcoming information from the witnesses yesterday. And I appreciate Mr. Poilievre's efforts and Mr. Julian's efforts to get more information out. Canadians do want to get to the bottom of this, but I don't think it's fair to be, well, not fair. I really hope that all of the members on all sides, regardless of partisanship, including the chair, can be way above the normal for fairness, and that the gutter approach of 2007 in that minority parliament is never approached ever again. Thank you.
Okay, on to Ms. Zurowitz, followed by Mr. Fragascatis, unless I see a member of another party. Ms. Zurowitz. You're muted. You're
Sorry.
muted there.
Yes,
Okay.
I've got it. I have it. You keep on calling me Mr. Mr. Chair, but that's okay. Anyways, I thank you so much. I do not support this motion. For me, it's an absolute honor to have our Prime Minister come before our committee. It is unprecedented that a Prime Minister comes before a committee, and so if we are able to have him for 1 hour, I think that is sufficient. I also think that if we have our the Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, for 1 hour, I also think it's an honor to have her with us tomorrow. So I do not support this motion. And in fact, Mr. Chair, I actually think, I keep on rereading the official motion that we adopted. I believe it was at the beginning of July. And I really believe that we have done a great job, and I think we've reached the conclusion of what we were asked to do in that motion. And just to remind everyone, there were two key parts of that motion. It was to conduct a study in examining how much the government spent in awarding the $912 million sole source contract to We Charity. So that was the first part. And the second part was, and how the outsourcing of the Canada Student Service Grant to We Charity proceeded as far as it did. And so on the first part, we have heard numerous times that there's no money that was misspent. Indeed, none was spent. No money was wasted. We Charity, for any of the admin dollars they actually received, they are sending it all back. And they've also indicated to us that We Charity was not in any way to have profited from the Canada Student Service Grant. The other thing, and this is part of this, the awarding of the 912 million and the sole source contract, it was not a sole source contract. It's complete fabrication and misinformation. It was a contribution agreement. It was a contribution agreement because it was the best vehicle for us to be able to get this very important student program out the door as soon as possible. It had a lot of key deliverables and a lot of accountabilities. The contribution agreement should not be seen by any Canadian as being a fast way of only sort of throwing out money out the door without any oversight at all. That was not at all the case, and we heard that very clearly from Ian Shugat, the clerk of the Privy Council. We heard that also from Rachel Warnick, who's the Senior Assistant Deputy Minister of Skills and Employment Reg. So on that first part, 912 million sole source contract, we have heard those elements time and time again. The last thing I'd mention, I think my colleague, Mr. Sorbara, had also talked to this, keeps on being thrown around still. It's a $1 billion contract that was given to We Charity. Not at all the case. We had heard, and actually we have evidence in our hands that's been formally submitted and also under oath confirmed by the Kielburgers yesterday that it's really a $543 million contribution agreement where up to 500 million would actually go to students, depending on how many students actually participated in the program, and only up to $43.5 million to we. Again, only to cover the costs, of actually delivering this program. So I wanted to sort of just say that we have time and time again actually satisfied that first part of the original motion that we had passed at the beginning of July. In terms of the second part, how the outsourcing of the Canada Student Service Grant to We Charity proceeded as far as we did, the implication that was behind this motion was that it was the Prime Minister or one of our other ministers that somehow had directed the public service to select We Charity. There has been, with all of the testimony that has come before us, and again, it included under oath the Kielburgers yesterday, we have heard zero evidence that that is the case. We have heard from the clerk of the Privy Council, Ian Shugat. We have heard
Point
from
of order.
Rachel Warnick, who's the Senior Assistant Deputy Minister. Yes. Hello?
Point of order.
Oh, sorry, Peter. I was muted. I was yelling at you to make your point of order. My apologies.
You didn't need to yell at me, Mr. Chair. A whisper is fine. I question Ms. Zerowitz's relevance on this. Again, we have a motion that we're discussing. I think this is an important one. It's very timely. It's for tomorrow. We've seen the case advocated for the 3 hours, and I gather that it is true that Liberal members were repeating themselves, but they just need to be better prepared tomorrow, I think. As far as opposition members are concerned, we did not get our questions out in 4 hours. So if we could speak to the motion, that's the relevance, I think, that's important so that we can get to the vote on this.
I do think, Mr. Julian, you're going beyond the point of order a little bit as well, but that's fine. I understand. But partly tied into this, I would think, is the original motion, is it not? On what we were meeting on. I guess that's what I'm having a little difficulty with as chair on relevance, because the original motion passed on July 6th. This ties into that as an extension of that motion. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm certainly willing to be corrected. So I'll go back to Ms. Zerowitz and ask her to stay on topic as she can. She'd better. And then I'll go to Mr. Fortin. And then Mr. Fragiskatis.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Polyev.
Yes, I just want to confirm that this meeting cannot be ended without a majority vote of the committee. Your clerk has confirmed that with my office. I now have a written memo from my staff who spoke to your clerk. We had a very strange episode in the last time we held one of these planning meetings where you suddenly demanded unanimous consent for the meeting to go on. And when one liberal decided that she didn't want the meeting to happen, you slammed your gavel and flipped the switch on the Zoom, and the lights went out. So I just want to make sure that we don't suddenly pass some imaginary threshold whereby all of a sudden a single Liberal MP has the power to shut the meeting down, because that would again be contrary to the rules.
I am still trying to determine that rule, Mr. Polyev. I know anytime that when bells ring, we need unanimous consent, but I have been communicating.
No,
I've been communicating with the clerk, and we do have an additional problem today that I didn't realize. The meeting is scheduled from 6 to 7. And we are operating. Maybe I could ask the clerk to explain the conversation we had while this meeting is going on over email. Could you, Mr. Clerk, relative to we are in a different with Zoom meetings. The times are organized by the whips. And the times are fairly specific. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could give us your opinion on this, and we'll go from there. I don't intend to adjourn the meeting on the basis of one objection from a member, because we're uncertain on that at the moment. I'll give you that. But Mr. Clerk, if you could, and then I see Mr. McLeod's hand up. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I took note of Mr. Poilievre's points, and I think the distinction here is that the proceedings in the virtual meeting environment, particularly Zoom, require an additional and quite extensive amount of technical support that has come up long after the established rules, which Mr. Poilievre pointed to, were established. Of course, all members who have experienced committee proceedings before the pandemic know that the usual practice is for the chair to perceive general agreement around the table when it's time to adjourn a meeting, and that usually occurs at the scheduled hour of adjournment. Ordinarily, committees should continue sitting if the members wish to, but the proceedings under a Zoom environment, the virtual meeting environment, are different. And as a result, the House has organized, particularly through the offices of all of the whips, to set a schedule for committees to meet to ensure that each committee has the necessary interpretation and multimedia support to provide the service in this new virtual environment. To ensure that those services are available, the whips have agreed to a strict set schedule when committees can meet. And if committees wish to continue meeting virtually outside of those times, they should request and obtain approval by the whips so that administrative support can be made available. It's not to contest Mr. Poilievre's point that the committee has a right to meet procedurally, but from a technical and an administrative perspective, the whips have agreed to collaboration to make sure that committees can meet and receive the services that they've come to expect. So it's an administrative and a technical
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. We're working.
I have a point of order. I have a point of order. I have a point of order.
Mr. Polyev, we're working on your previous point of order and getting an explanation from the clerk. If you don't mind, we'll let him finish his explanation, then we'll go to your new point of order.
Thank you, sir.
All right, sounds that that's done now.
You're done?
So,
okay, Mr. Polyev.
All right, I just confirmed with the whip's office, we have not, our whip has not consented to this meeting being an hour. So the clerk's concern being dispensed with, we're back to the normal rules, which requires a majority vote before the meeting is shut down. So I thank him for advising us about other meetings where whips have maybe agreed to an hour-long engagement, but I can confirm that our whip's office did no such thing in this case. So we are here as long as it takes to get voted on the motions or until the majority of committee members vote to adjourn the meeting.
I will ask others to consult with their whips on that. The other difficulty here, Mr. Polyev, and then I'll go to Mr. McLeod on this point of order. The other difficulty we have here is, regardless of where the whips are right at the moment, if this was agreed from an administrative point of view, we do have a problem with those that manage translation, Zoom technicalities, et cetera. That's the only thing I see. I'm willing to continue as long as we're not imposing on the public service in an area where we should not be. Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a few comments on the point of order that Mr. Polyev has raised.
I haven't. Point of order, Mr. Chair. I haven't finished.
I know you haven't, but okay. A point of order takes precedence over your remarks. I hate to tell you that, but
no, it's okay. I didn't realize it was a point of order that Mr. McLeod.
Yeah, it is, okay. Mr. McLeod.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just wanted to talk about the standard. I just wanted to talk a little bit and add to the discussion on the standard practice. I think Mr. Polyev referred to about committee rules. You are the longest serving member, Mr. Chair, of this committee, and I think on the Liberal side, I've probably been there the longest as the MP on the Liberal side, and Mr. Polyev was appointed on the same day as I was. And so we got a little bit of a history going back to the last government, and I remember quite clearly that our committee wrapped up on the hour, on the minute that it was scheduled to, and many times because Mr. Polyev had to get up and leave to go to another committee.
Okay, I don't really believe that. I'm sorry, Mr. McLeod. I don't really believe it's on the point of order. The information has been noted. I think it's more point information. Thank you. We'll go now. We are going to have to figure what we do at 7 o'clock. So I guess I'm not sure if you have assistance there or not. Mr. Clerk, because the whips are the other parties are going to have to be consulted with and find out where we're at here. If there was an agreement that the meeting end at 7 o'clock, then that's what it'll have to be. If we can get around it, then we will continue. So I'll go to, in the meantime, I'll go to Ms. Zerowitz, then to Mr. Fortin, and then to Mr. Fragiskatis. Ms. Zerowitz.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the point of orders that were made, but it's exactly as you had interpreted, Mr. Chair. The reason I was speaking to the original finance motion was, for me, it's all relevant. There's a motion right now on the table to have the Prime Minister come and speak for 3 hours and to have Ms. Telford speak for 2 hours. And my argument and why I'm against it is, one is I'm saying that the Prime Minister coming to our committee at all is an honor, one, and it is unprecedented. And for him to come for an hour, I think is sufficient time. I also think having our Chief of Staff, the Chief of Staff to our Prime Minister, to our government, come for an hour is also sufficient time. And the other argument I'm making as well is that we, in my opinion, have largely heard testimony that I think have largely, if not completely, satisfied what we were meant to study in the original motion that was passed on July the 6th. I will reiterate, though, to me, it is important. It's important for us to have these types of studies. It is important for us there to be oversight and accountability. It is important for us to ensure that if there are issues that arise, that there are meetings that bring in testimony to ask the important questions, to ask the hard questions. And I think that is what we've done for the last few meetings. But as I think my colleague, Mr. Serbara had mentioned, we started hearing the Conservatives yesterday repeating questions multiple times. And to be honest, the other thing I heard quite a bit yesterday was a lot of fishing for information. It was as though, let's keep on asking for more and more information. And if we collect information somehow, maybe there can be something that we could use to make this issue look worse than what it really is. And so for me, this we issue has descended into something that is beyond what the original intention of
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Yes,
Sorry, I was muted, Pierre, by your point of order.
Yeah, the clerk's story sort of changed here. Yesterday, or the other day when you shut down the meeting early, it was the claim was that it was because you didn't have unanimous consent to go on. Now the clerk is claiming there's some kind of an agreement that this meeting only go for an hour. I just got off the phone with a senior staff member in the whip's office. He claims this was an agreement by the whip. I've again confirmed for a second time that there was no agreement whatsoever that this meeting be limited to an hour. So the clerk has inaccurate information, and that cannot be used as a justification to shut down this meeting.
Mr. Polyev, I'll let Mr. Fragiskatis in on this point of order, and then I've got a point of order. You too, Mr. Julian. Okay, Mr. Fragiskatis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we really going to descend to a level where we're questioning the objectivity of public servants? The clerk was quite clear in his reasoning. For Mr. Polyev, who's a seasoned parliamentarian, to now go after the clerk and question his judgment, it's beyond disappointing. It's something that I have not seen even from him after 5 years of being an MP myself. Extremely puzzled by that, and it just should not happen at a committee.
Okay, Mr. Julian, what I would suggest, I'll go to your point, but we are in a dilemma here. I'm going to.
No, we're not.
I'm going to. Yeah, no, we simple. Are. No, it's not.
Keep working.
It's
do your job.
It's not. Will you stop interrupting for a minute, please? Could you do that, Pierre, just for a minute? Mr. Julian, your point of order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just confirmed with the NDP Whip's office. There's no agreement on limiting a committee meeting like this one. So that's at least two parties that say that there is no agreement around that. In fact, the Whip's office has said very clearly, if the committee believes it should be extending its time, that it's free to do so.
Okay. I've got, if I can speak on this point of order, will you, and Mr. Fortin, come in, and then I want to make a point.
Juste pour dire que je viens de vérifier.
Well, just to say that I've checked with the Whip's office as well, and they've told me that there is no agreement to limit it, and on the contrary, committees have often sat longer than expected. We have to ensure that we have interpretation into French until the end of the meeting.
Yes, and that's what we need to clear up. What I had a message come in here earlier that the agreement with various services, was that it be 11 to 7. We have to make sure that they can go beyond 7. Would it be okay if we suspend it for 5 minutes while we clear this up, make sure that we have translation services and the multimedia services and the services of the Library of Parliament, and I'll ask each party to clear it up with their whips and report back. I've heard from Chair, 3. I haven't heard from the Liberals. Mr. Sabera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we get clarification from the clerk, please, on this procedural manner in terms of when committees are under this extremely extraordinary period of time that that is happening in our country, and we are meeting virtually. When the virtual sitting times, if I can use the word virtual sitting times, are for committees to meet, please?
I don't want to put the clerk on the spot, and I don't know if you can answer that, Mr. Clerk, but what I would like to do is suspend for 5 minutes and make sure we're all on the same wavelength. I would ask, with apologies to translators and multi-service people, if they could stay with us at least for the moment while we sort this out. And it is now exactly 7 o'clock your
Mr.
time.
Chair. Point of order.
Yes,
Point of
we'll
order.
go to that. Yes, and that would mean we'd reconvene at 7:05.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. This explanation makes absolutely no sense. Of course, we have meetings that go often well into the beyond midnight with translation, with technical support, with technical tools on Parliament Hill that are far more complicated than Zoom. I'm not exactly sure what technical expertise you say expires after 7 o'clock, Mr. Clerk, because the average Canadian is using Zoom well into the late hours of the night. And we know that our translators have often worked right through midnight through to the early morning hours. So there is no technical reason why we cannot continue to meet. If this meeting is shut down, it will be because the Liberals are, in their minority, are shutting down meetings to avoid having motions voted on.
I am not looking at shutting down the meeting, Mr. Polyev. So if you could maybe prevent that accusation, it would be decent. But I am going to suspend the meeting for 5 minutes while we sort this out, so that at least I'm comfortable with us continuing as long as we have to continue. So I will suspend now to 7:06 Ottawa time, Eastern time. Okay, meeting suspended.
My main point was I do think it's unprecedented to have our prime minister come to committee at all. I do think an hour is sufficient, and I also think an hour is sufficient with the chief of staff. I do believe that we have had enough witnesses that has fulfilled the original mandate of the motion that was passed on July 6th. And maybe I'm just going to say sort of one more thing. We are still in a pandemic. I believe that the last 4 months, to be honest, were easy. And I think the tough ones are yet to come. And we have a lot of work ahead of us to restart and rebuild the economy, and to do so under so much uncertainty. And there is so much great work that this committee could be doing in terms of looking at some of the tough decisions that we need to make ahead around our economy, around the sectors that desperately need support, around a green recovery, around looking at things like a universal basic income. There's so much more work that we could be putting our energies into. And I just want to say, and maybe it's because it's the idealist in me, I just want for one moment in time for us to just drop the partisan games and just step up to be the government that the Canadian population needs at this time. Let's come together and bring our best ideas and our best energy to figuring out how we could actually chart a course past this unprecedented pandemic. And how is it that we could build a country that is more resilient, more equitable, more just, and more prosperous. And that's where I'd like us to be focused our attention, and not the fishing expedition that's happening right now, and not the theatrics, but us moving on to actually dealing with what is absolutely the top of mind for Canadians today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Zerowitz. I'm not sure who's up, Mr. Fragaskatis or Mr. Fraser. Mr. Fragaskatis, who's up?
I'm glad to go here.
Okay, Mr. Fragaskatis, floor is yours.
My colleague, Mr. Fraser, wanted to follow. That's no problem. Well, first of all, you're a modest man, so you were attacked earlier, and I have worked with you now on this committee for 2 years, and first elected in 2015. You've been a mentor to new members of parliament, and I still count myself as a new member of parliament. You will not quote this, I know, Wayne, but Mr. Chair, excuse me, but I will quote from Maclean's magazine just yesterday, and I hope Mr. Polyev, who's suddenly disappeared, no surprise, is listening to this. Maclean's said the following about yesterday's meeting. Under the heading, a parliamentary committee is an infuriating form for parsing questions of fact. It then follows to say, quote, if it weren't for the grace, chairmanship skills, and occasional shouting of Liberal MP Wayne Easter, and I think they're being a bit unfair there to you, Chair, because you didn't really shout. You have to keep things in order. It continues by saying, the committee hearing could at times have turned into a brawling disaster.
Could we get back to the question we're on?
I'm trying to. I'm glad to focus on the main question, but when members of the committee have tried to attack the chair and the objectivity of the chair, not to mention what was said earlier about our clerk by Mr. Polyev, which I'm still stunned by, but maybe I'm not stunned by it anyway. I'll leave that aside. Mr. Chair, you've been an excellent, objective, very fair chair in our committee and an extraordinary parliamentarian for the better part of more than 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. I'll leave that part there, but I do want to, and Ms. Jarowitz and Mr. Sorbera touched on these points too, but it needs to be underlined. The Prime Minister coming to a parliamentary committee is quite unprecedented in the history of this country, to say the least. It's interesting to me that Mr. Polyev, when he had the opportunity to vote in favor of Mr. Harper coming to testify at a parliamentary committee in response to concerns around the Mike Duffy scandal, did not vote in favor of that at all. He voted against.
I think
that
we are
motion
before there. I think we are stretching quite a distance, Mr. Fragiscatas, from
just putting those points
from
on
the
motions.
if we could go to the go to the motion.
And relating it back to the motion, of course, the motion calls for 3 hours for the Prime Minister and 2 hours for the Chief of Staff. My question on this is to what end? Because the Conservatives have repeated themselves ad nauseum. Yesterday, they started off with their questions, but then they kept asking those same sorts of questions. Sometimes it was just mere images. The questions kept on coming, and there wasn't any difference. It was as if they had exhausted their list of questions and just wanted to keep on throwing the mud at the wall that they could. And I think that with due respect to Mr. Fraser on that, because he used that quote the other day in a meeting, and I think it's apt. Throwing mud on the wall and seeing what sticks seems to be the strategy of the Conservatives. But to what end? And they haven't answered that here. Prime Minister of the country is being the Prime Minister of Canada, dealing with a pandemic. He's good enough to come to a committee. The Conservatives haven't explained themselves why he needs to come here for 3 hours. I'll stop there, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, and Mr. Fraser, I believe you want in as the final point, and then we will go to a vote.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll not try to take too much time. There's a couple quick points that I want to make, and I hope you can hear me. I'm trying to speak a little more quietly for those who didn't have the benefit of a previous discussion. I've moved around my house to make sure I could hear my daughter if she wakes up. There's some unique things arise when you're dealing with Zoom meetings and scheduling concerns. So first of all, on the actual point of the motion, I find it personally a little bit odd that the Prime Minister's coming to the Finance Committee as opposed to the other committees that are studying the same issue, given the nature of the motion we passed. But in any event, he's agreed to come. I think that's terrific. I've made the point in our last meeting that I think 3 hours is the stretch. I take it some will agree, some will disagree with me on that point. I do want to take this opportunity to speak to the previous point of order. And again, I'm not trying to drag this on forever. I did take a different interpretation, not as a result of the Zoom meetings or the technical capacity, but actually based on the standing orders in Boston-Gagnon. I found it a little bit odd that we had a disagreement in the way the meeting ended previously. Obviously, Mr. Chair, you were acting on the advice of the clerk at the time. I looked into it, and I'll give you what my thoughts were on it. The standing orders in Boston-Gagnon, as far as I can tell, don't explicitly rule that a committee meeting needs to continue after the scheduled hour of adjournment because there's a debate ongoing. The closest thing that I could find to a defined practice came from page 1099 of Boston-Gagnon. It was the 2017 edition. And it said that a committee meeting may be adjourned by the adoption of a motion to that effect However, most meetings are adjourned more informally when the chair receives the implied consent of members to adjourn. The committee chair cannot adjourn the meeting without the consent of a majority of the members unless the chair decides that a case of disorder or misconduct is so serious as to prevent the committee from continuing its work. My interpretation of this passage, and unless I can be corrected, was that the chair can't, in the middle of a scheduled meeting, announce that the meeting should be adjourned and say, we're halfway through, it's over, without canvassing the membership first to see if, in fact, they wanted to adjourn. This meeting would be a useful example that was scheduled to end at 7. My argument would be that, Wayne, you couldn't have said at 6:30, hey, we're done, folks, too bad if you disagree, but that at the time 7 rolled around, it would have been appropriate. This is my personal interpretation. I'd be interested in what the clerk's finding on it may be. Honestly, my real concern now that I've kind of think I'm managing with my daughter upstairs is so I don't fall into this trap again. I don't want to create a scenario where every committee can become an indefinite exercise that we haven't planned for. And if that was going to be the case going into a meeting, I think it'd be helpful to know that it's possible we could be sitting indefinitely, so we could all plan accordingly. I said I wouldn't speak too long. I probably have already exceeded that expectation I've set for myself, so I'll cut it off there. I would be interested in what the chair or clerk's ruling may be now or at another time. Thank you.
Okay, we will look into that at another time. I read it similar to you, Sean, but we'll go to the clerks for further advice on this, because there is all kinds of different scenarios, and it does say there, unless the chair decides that a case of disorder or misconduct is so serious as to prevent the committee from continuing its work. And we know that had never happened at this committee, so we should be all right there. With that, I think we agreed earlier that after these number of speakers, we would go to the vote. So I would ask the clerk, if you could, Mr. Clerk, to read the motion again and then go to a recorded vote. Mr. Clerk, you're muted. You're still muted.
Thank you so much. Bear with me for just one moment. I'll pull up the text of the motion from Mr. Poilievre. That the Prime Minister appear for no less than 3 hours, alone as a witness on his own panel, and that Katie Telford appear for no less than 2 hours, alone as a witness on her own panel, provided that the two appear separately.
Okay, that's the motion. If you could go to a recorded vote.
Mrs. Zarowitz.
No.
Mr. Katos.
No.
Mr. Fraser.
No.
Mr. Sorbara.
No.
Mr. McLeod.
No.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Cumming.
Yeah.
Mr. Morantz.
Yes.
Mr. Poilievre.
Yes.
Monsieur Fortin.
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
Yes. We.
6 in favor, 5 opposed.
Okay, the motion is carried. Are we ready to adjourn?
Yes.
No objections to adjourning?
No objections, Mr. Chair.
All right, then
you very
the meeting will adjourn.
We'll see your
Meeting
kid there,
adjourned.
Sean.
Thanks, folks. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.